get is y'all don't know anything about racing. This is true. You're right. You're in the wrong show.
Yeah.
You're watching the wrong show if you want to hear like super engineer stuff. Buenas noches. Welcome back to Hit the Apex. I'm back today, and I'm exhausted. And the Hungarian Grand Prix was interesting. We got a lot to go. We got a lot to talk about actually because
Yeah,
there's a lot
Jeff
of
and I already argued over text, so it kind of
yeah. However, there's a lot to dissect and kind of unwrap what's going on. I mean, it's getting tighter. It's a tighter race now. I know the top three, but two of them seem to be kind of pulling away, and does another team figure it out? And what's going on with Max and not even finishing in the top four and no podium again and 7 out of the 13 races. Hey, Jane. I'm back. I'm exhausted today, but I'm back. Seven of the 13 races have been won by different drivers, so this is fun. F1 2024.
Yeah, it's just
been wild.
It's just like every cycle. Like Max probably has a big enough lead where he'll still win the championship. Next year will be really competitive, and then we'll get one good year and then new cars.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
it's every time, man.
I feel like this year is turning into.
It's fun, but I mean,
Yeah.
Max has probably built a big enough lead where it's going to be really hard.
So? You think so?
It's going to be tough.
76 points, I believe, is what it is at this point. That's a lot to make up, unless
is...
especially in modern F1 with the cars are so reliable.
Yeah,
back in the day, you get a lot of DNFs and stuff.
You're right. You're right. I was looking at the constructors. That's why I was like, what?
Constructors is wide open.
For sure.
And the drivers is not over. It's just he's the favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Probably like, I don't know, he'll win 3 out of 4 championships from here. Maybe 4 out of 5. Whatever. But yeah, next year is going to be insanely competitive.
It really is.
Yeah.
But then after that, new cars, and someone's going to get it right and be 10 seconds ahead of everyone in 2026. That is that's the way it works.
Yeah,
always.
So let's talk about this past week, this past weekend, and and the
and George Russell out in Q1.
George Russell, baby.
Yeah.
What a stud.
Look, man. Totally, it was 100% not his fault, but I'll take it anyway. They screwed up his strategy early. Did not put enough fuel in the car for him to be on the track when it was dry.
That's wild.
I mean, that's a major mess up, but we'll take what we can get.
Well, let's look at
the race standings. Yeah,
Piastri gets his first win as an F1 driver, with Norris and Hamilton in P2 and P3, and Lewis seems to be putting on a little bit of a run here and kind of showing everybody, hey, I still got it. I can still do this, man. So a lot of people are kind of counting him out because Russell has kind of outperformed him a little bit this year, but no. Lewis Hamilton, not a chance, my friend. He's kind of showing everybody he's still got a little left in the tank, and God knows Ferrari needs it next year because I don't know what the hell's going on over there, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But are you guys excited about what's happening in McLaren? I love it. I love to see it. Me and Vish got into an argument about Norris and Piastri at the end there. I feel like if you screwed up, you screwed up. That's your fault. Norris, you should have won. But no, he tells me otherwise. He says, no, you have to understand they screwed up by accident, give it back to place. Okay, fine, whatever. Norris, yeah, I feel bad for Norris also, though. But anyways, he says I was wrong. That's fine. I'll take it. It is what it is. But talk to me a little bit about that, what happened there, Vish, if you can, and why I was so upset and why you could see how some F1 fans might be bothered by it.
Well, I mean, McLaren did not need to pit Norris first, but they miscalculated. They knew he was going to come out in front. The undercut was worth about 3 seconds. He was 2 seconds behind, so he was going to come out in front. And they intended to swap the cars back. They made a couple of mistakes. One is Hamilton was nowhere close, so they didn't need to cover him off on that lap. They could have pitted Piastri first. Right. Also, they actually left Piastri out 2 laps longer. So it wasn't just the 1 lap. They left him out for 2. So by then, the undercut goes from 3 seconds to like 5 seconds. Exactly. So when he comes out, he's not in range to even overtake anymore. Because if they came out next to each other, it would have been easy for them to just wave him through. But now he's far enough behind where it's like, oh, he's got to catch up. And you saw on that track, you weren't able to catch up and overtake. It's just the unfortunately, I think that caught a lot of the teams off guard. That's why a lot of their strategies didn't work. It was old school F1 where like the weight coming off the car in front of you was, and that's why all of a sudden, because Norris was slower than Piastri the whole race, then that last stint because he's clean air finally. Well, it's clean air finally, and then once they let Piastri through, Norris again couldn't get close. So
was the biggest thing tire degradation? Was it a track evolution? Was it just a combination of a lot of things?
It's the way the track is.
No, it's the way the track is. We talked about this on the show that Jazz blew off, but just mess with you. No, but there's only really one straight. It's not even that long of a straight. And when you get all these, and there's actually an old, I think it's 4 or 5 years old, that they actually use this. It's on YouTube where they demonstrate like why cars can't follow an F1, and they use this track as an example. It's like if you're within like 3 or 4 seconds. And they show like, the air vortex and how the air gets disturbed and it cuts the downforce on the cars behind. So the car in front has a huge advantage. And so even when you were faster, you try to get close to the car in front. And once you get within a certain distance, it's so hard to follow. And
puts the brakes on you.
Yeah. And then there's not that long of a straight to overtake. So you don't get it done on that straight. You're now sitting behind that other car for all the other and just getting it. It's almost like just walking into like into the wind.
Someone said it's like this is like Monaco, but without the
without the walls.
Without the walls,
right?
Yeah. So, but there was some overtaking, but it really had to be a huge tire offset to do that. So Piastri won the race in the first corner.
So pretty much. So my question to you about that strategy altogether is, why the hell even do it, right? Why the hell even try that? The strategy altogether was screwed up. They screwed it up, period. So have you seen other instances where they screw up the strategy so badly like that they just leave it the way it is? Or are they ultimately always switching,
not like this. Not like this. Sometimes they do different strategies and they're just completely different, like someone's on a 1 stop and someone's on a 2, and it ends up the car in front was on the wrong strategy. That's different. This is straight up. They could have pit either car. They knew Norris was going to come out in front if they pitted him first. They did anyway. That's not really, and that wasn't really a screw up because they knew that was going to happen.
Right.
Like that was on purpose. And then Norris was supposed to let him through, and then kind of a dick about it, to be honest. I mean, eventually he did, but he instead tried to. Well, his plan, and I think this was wrong, but maybe not though, because you couldn't overtake anyway. But he would have been better served slowing down, letting him through immediately, and having like 15 laps to try and overtake him. Instead, he and you can hear this on the radio messages. He intentionally, and that's where like get off the curbs. You're using it. He was trying to open up a big enough gap where they would then say could keep it, and then that's when he starts arguing with them, and they were never going to let him do that because he never would have gotten near there if they didn't let him in front in the first place. So I mean, he had the choice of just being disobedient and staying in front, but then that would have caused all sorts of ripple effects. But he should have just given the place back pretty much immediately because he could have backed off. It was only like a 2.5 to 3 second gap when Piastri came out. If he just backs off at that point, lets him through, it never gets to that 5-6 seconds it was when he waves him through. And then he had several laps to try and overtake. But I think he knew, as we all saw on that track, you weren't going to be able to overtake. So it's like the only chance I have is if I just try to open up like a 10-second gap and say, come on, guys, come on. And he tried that, and it didn't work.
Well, speaking of the 10-second gap, and Evan, I'll throw this to you, right? Lewis Hamilton finished in P3, but almost 15 seconds behind the top 2 guys. Or maybe Yeah, about 14 and a half, 15 seconds behind the top two guys. It was, from what I understand, Toto and the whole team wasn't really happy with their performance the whole entire weekend. They felt like they didn't have any pace. They felt slow. Yet here we are still talking about Lewis Hamilton finishing in P3. Is that a testament to the way that he drives and how he was able to drive that car this weekend? Or is that also a concern for the likes of Ferrari, even Red Bull to this, we'll talk about Max in a second, but some of the other teams that finished behind Lewis, does that kind of tell you where they are right now with their, the development of their cars? Or is this again just a situation where the course, the circuit itself kind of still helped them out either way?
Well, I mean, it is exactly what we were saying before. This track is so much like a Monaco without walls, where qualifying makes or plays a big effect on what happens during the race. But also, he would have probably been in fourth place, or if it wasn't for the fact that Verstappen tried to make that egregious lunge at turn one and almost flip his car, somersaulting it end over end, but because Verstappen was gaining on him, Verstappen was coming up to him, but you could just tell Verstappen was really going crazy, trying to get himself, back up to try to fight with Lando and Oscar. But yeah, I mean, overall, that Mercedes has shown that it's got a lot more pace now. They figured something out with it that seems to be working right. They won the last two races. Realistically, at Silverstone, it was because they did a good job overall. The other one was because George Russell was just in third and Lando and Max crashed with each other. But overall, they have shown improvement in that Mercedes that's put them back up there, at least competing. Maybe not be able to still or be faster, straight up than the McLaren and the Red Bull, but at least you're seeing him be able to come out there and fight with them, which is what we all want to see. We all want to see, not just the two teams fight each other, but you add Ferrari, you add Mercedes in there, you add everybody in there, and it makes for a funner race.
I agree. Now, I understand why Max finished in fifth to a certain degree, right? Obviously, the incident with Hamilton caused him, to have maybe some sort of damage on the car, and that's how Leclerc got past him as well, because he wasn't really, going really fast anyways. However, to me, it's still a concern with Max, where this has become a fight now. Like he just doesn't go out there and dominate like he did the past 3 or 4 years. So this is a little bit different from him. Is he showing that, I don't even know how to kind of explain it, but is he kind of showing that maybe he's going to struggle a little bit when some of these other teams are starting to pick up the pace and get a little bit better with their development? Or is it just a case of, if he gets past Hamilton, he might be able to get past Norris and Piastri as well?
No.
Well, I was going to say
he was too far back. They screwed up his pit strategy too. Like he went long on the first stint and lost the place that's how he lost the place to Hamilton. Yeah. I don't know what they were thinking. Again, I think it was probably a miscalculation on how easy it would be to.
Well, he was pissed. You could hear it on the radio, right?
Yeah, no, they screwed it up.
The whole race he was complaining.
And they knew coming in, history showed that on this track the undercut is strong. So like they decided to run long. Again, I think all the teams to a certain extent miscalculated how easy it would be to overtake. But he got stuck. Yeah, he got stuck twice. But he gave the place up in the first place. And actually, you could see Leclerc. They abandoned their strategy. Like the second, like they realized they'd screwed up, and shockingly, Ferrari actually thinking on their feet. They went long the first stint, and then the second stint they just pit when Hamilton did, because you cannot overcut. That's not a thing here. Let's see if we can catch him pass him in the pits. They couldn't. Remember, he stuck with Hamilton for a lot of that second stint, and then eventually Max came through and was able to overtake him, and we saw what happened when he tried to overtake Hamilton. But that was Ferrari actually adjusting and realizing, look, he actually, because remember, Leclerc went long on the first stint.
Right.
And he went very short on the second stint, because they were just like, you know what, there's no point. Yeah, he can go another 10 laps. He's just going to drop further and further back and pit and come out in ninth or whatever. And it's like, what's the point? So, but Red Bull didn't make that decision. And so so that's why, yeah. And then you could see, I mean, immature Max was back. He was, I mean, also Red Bull. I mean, sarcastic comments from the pit wall don't help either. Like, way to ease the tires in. Probably not the best approach.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking. I mean, look. Say what you will about Max. Honestly, like saying stuff like that. And I get they're in a friendly relationship. Obviously, it's his pit guy. Like, they talk all the time. Dude, he's like a 3-time world champion. Like, show a little fucking respect. Like, I would have been pissed if I'm sitting there. First of all, they screw the strategy up. You're trying to make up ground because of it. They're like, "Oh, you're using too much of the tire." I'm like, "Man, F you guys," which is basically what he said. I mean, come on. Like, what are they doing? They screwed the strategy up, and then they're complaining he's not easing the tires. And he's like, "I'm trying to overtake when these are fresh, because if they wear out at all, I'm not going to be able to." But then, he deserved a penalty too. Like, I can't believe he didn't get a penalty for that kamikaze lockup wipeout of Hamilton. Which, I'll tell you what, we are right back to old Max, because if you look at this, what we have on the screen, there is no penalty they could have given him that wouldn't have cost him points. Therefore, he got no penalty.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. On top of that, I love the irony of him complaining about Hamilton moving under braking when they collided, saying, "Oh yeah, he moved under braking. That's what happened. He moved under braking." Max, you did the exact same thing to Lando, and that's what causes your guys' wreck in Spielberg.
I mean, do you expect anything else from them?
Exactly.
Also,
he's fighting the car more than he's fighting the other racers at this point.
Have you seen the onboards of that from Hamilton's? I don't know how often you look at the onboards, but now the camera on the front rotates 360. So when it's pointed back, you can see it, because you can, it's on Hamilton's car, but it's pointed back. So you can see Hamilton, and then you can kind of see off to the side. And like, you see Hamilton's car slow down, and then like this missile comes out because Max didn't brake, and then smoke, and then crash. And it's like, it is an amazing shot, because it's like, it's clear it's going way too fast. You can see that. You can see it coming from far away. He's not slowing down.
You gotta love it.
And then you see the smoke because he locked his tires up, and then the collision. It's just it is great. By the way, look who hopped in here.
Hey,
we are going to talk about Binotto in a bit.
Yep.
I really don't care about that, to be honest with you, Jack. Good for him. Good for Binotto. Hey. And then everybody else left. So when he got there. So speaking of Binotto, so you mentioned a little bit about Ferrari and Leclerc and Sainz. They made a bit of a change to their floor for this race, bringing it in, bringing in some different upgrades and some changes. It looked like the first 2 days looked like they had some pace. They looked really good. FP1, it was 1 and 3, and then FP2. I think they were still up there again. But when it comes to the longevity, when it comes to the whole entire race, it still looks like they're still lacking a little bit of pace. It still looks like they're lacking that little extra, something there. And even if they get out in front, they get a nice start. They get a good, good release off the line. They end up, third, fourth, fifth, around that area for the most part. The last maybe 5 or 6 races, right? Is it a matter of them just not getting it right? Again, you think they came in with those upgrades about 3 or 4 races ago and they sucked. They were terrible. And so they made some changes to the floor, and it looks like they got a little bit more of that pace back, and they looked a little more competitive, but still, they're still not there. You see Mercedes and McLaren and even Red Bull to some extent bringing these upgrades, and they're figuring it out, and they're hauling ass, and they're fast, and and Ferrari seems to be one of those teams where you've got the drivers, you've got some talent there, and you're kind of, pissing it away by not developing your car properly and giving these guys the proper machine to be able to go out there and contend and compete with some of these other teams. What's going on at Ferrari? What, for my sake and for any of the Ferrari fans out there, is this just a lack of having the right people in place that are developing this car, or is it just, the track's not suitable for? I don't know. What's going on at Ferrari that's not causing them to be as competitive as they should be right now.
I mean, I think it's a mix of a lot of things. I think there's a mix of the development on the car, like you were saying. You got to remember these teams are only allocated a certain amount of time of wind tunnel and CFC or CFD, and testing the cars out and seeing if these parts are going to work right and work well in these different areas. I think that they went all out and prepared this car a lot for Monaco, and you saw how good that car looked there. It looked dominating there pretty much. I mean, Charles got his first win, or first win in Monaco, and it was great. Everybody was riding high, really a lot for or with them. But then after that, they've been going to all these tracks that are completely different from Monaco. I said last week, I thought Ferrari was actually going to be pretty good here because of the fact that this track was so similar in style, being that it tight turns, not a lot of room to pass and stuff like that, that I actually thought that they were going to have a good race. I think I predicted Carlos to come in third, so I thought that it was going to help out a little bit. It almost seems like they seem to be a little bit down on power, at some point. They're not getting the top speeds that these other teams are getting, and they're not able to use that or put that power down as easily. Maybe something with their aerodynamics as well. We'll see going over to Spa this week, when we get into that, how that's going to end up, because it's so much more of a power track. And we'll see if there was a couple of years ago, I think there was that McLaren was just clearly down on power, and where every other team was hitting 190, almost 200 miles per hour on the straight, they were at like 170 or 180. I wouldn't be surprised if you see something like that with Ferrari coming into this week.
Yeah, we'll see, man. Hopefully they figure it out.
Yeah, and we don't know where exactly. I think clearly McLaren has the most consistent car right now, but this is a totally different track, so we'll see. Red Bull tends to be the most powerful and do well on these power circuits, so you'd think they'd move more to the front, but we have no idea how good that car is because Checo. I mean, we know Max is great, right? So you figure he's going to add performance to the car and probably drive it beyond its limits.
Sure.
But Checo is giving us no frame of reference because that man crashed out in Q1 again.
How bad has he been? How bad has he been? He's on the hot seat, right?
He's not making it past the summer break.
And in the last 6 races, Logan Sargent has outqualified him 4 times.
Yeah. He's not making it past the summer break.
So we don't actually know how good that car is. But Ferrari is definitely, I think, behind McLaren. It's probably about on par with Mercedes right now. Just Hamilton is Hamilton. He's probably getting a little bit more out of that car too. Maybe a little bit behind Mercedes, but that's more track to track. I think what Evan says spot on. We're gonna see, because Spa's such a different track than the ones we've been driving on that have been a little bit more of the higher downforce circuits. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Red Bull move back to the front now.
So two things before we get to Spa, because we'll finish up with Spa there. Real quick, we mentioned Binotto, right? Jack has mentioned this also. He's going over to Audi to lead their team over there. First of all, what's his specific job title? And second of all, are you intrigued by that move? Is that a good move for Audi? Vish, we'll start with you on that one. Excuse me. Jeez, sorry.
I think this is going to be a little contrary, and I think it is a good move. He's got a lot of experience. They're going to need that. They're starting up, and he's got experience running a team with a massive budget, which is what they're going to have. It's not the same thing as running a small team. So there are very few people with his level of experience there. So I think it's a smart move. He'll get things organized over there, and so at the least for the first few years you want that experience. So I think it's a good move for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's good for them as well. I think also, kind of bridges this gap because, they are still using the Ferrari engines, and, he's obviously had a relationship with Ferrari. Maybe it didn't end up being the best relationship at the end of the day. But at least he has some knowledge of the technical side of what's going on with it. He was a technical advisor for Ferrari even before he became team principal. And, so at the end with everything that's going on with how they're changing, it is, good for them to be able to do that. I would say though, I was surprised you didn't hear, Gunther Steiner's name more in there. I know he's kind of a meme at this point, but you're going to a German brand. Why wouldn't you get a German team principal in there? Somebody who obviously has a big media presence, who obviously is still is kind of out there in Formula One
because Gunther Steiner is not that good. That's why.
But I mean, the thing about it is, you got to remember, Gunther Steiner.
You can bring him in some capacity,
was,
but not as team principal. I don't think.
Maybe not, but I mean, at the end of the day, like I think that Gunther Steiner still has a voice in Formula One. He's still somebody that people, whether it's a meme to do it, they still kind of listen to him, and he's still somebody who has that presence and who brings in the fans. And at the end, and also he's German. You're going to a German brand, one of the legacy German brands. Volkswagen Auto Group with Audi, is a big thing there. I think it's the number one most profitable German company in the world or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. So, to get that, and especially because they're switching to the Audi engine in 2026, to bring an ex-Ferrari guy in, it makes sense if you're going to keep that Ferrari engine, but they're not going to anymore. So, but I mean, I get it. He was more successful, I guess, at Ferrari when he was there.
By the way, Gunther Steiner was actually born in Italy, though. Okay, it's on the border, but anyway, I'm just being a dick.
Yeah.
But also, is Steiner even good at his job?
He knows engines here. Well, that's what I was saying. He was with
Haas. He was with Haas.
Right. I'm not saying I didn't say I think he's bad at his job. I'm saying I don't think we know if he's good or not. How do you know from Haas? We know him because he's a celebrity from a reality TV show. So I don't think that's the market Audi's trying to get into. They're not like in the intentions. They want to actually win. But Noto's the right move there.
I mean, that's where the question comes in as well. How many mistakes did we always complain about with Tito Binotto when he was at Ferrari?
And if they get into a position where he can screw up the pit strategy and cost them race wins, they'll be very happy.
Yeah,
there's a different job than the one he had at Ferrari. So
yeah,
I guess you're right. Yeah, he's going to have a lot of plans though. And then lastly, we mentioned it a little bit again. Is this it for Checo? I mean, if he screws this up, is he done?
I mean, I think
he's at Red Bull. Is he done at Red Bull?
Yeah,
I think he's done. I agree with what Evan said earlier. I think this is his last race this week. I mean, after he crashed out in qualifying, Helmut Marko said we'll evaluate after Spa, which is what you were going to say anyway, because you're obviously not going to fire him when there's back-to-back races in the middle going into summer break. But I mean, I can't imagine he can do anything. I mean, we haven't looked at the standings yet, but I mean, he's very close to. I mean, the driver's standings are somewhat close. I mean, this is still quite a few points to make up. But I mean, this is 51 points in constructors is nothing, especially when one of the drivers can't score points at a high level. So like he has brought the constructors into play. Checo has by himself.
That's
so the question, and we just crossed the halfway point of the season. So there'll be 10 races left after Spa. The real question for them is, can we even afford for him to drive those 10 races, or is that alone going to cost us the constructors?
And is it beneficial for the team, as a whole? Like, would they rather leave him in there to keep on wallowing and bringing up these storylines of if he should be in the car, or do they want to put somebody else in there? I guess, the natural next question is, who would you see in? Would you see Daniel? Would you see Yuki? Would you see Liam Lawson? I mean, those seem to be the three biggest, the biggest names that they're saying to go in there.
I'd put Yuki in there.
I think he's performed really well this year. Well,
I mean, for Daniel is like in retirement mode. Like, I don't need to see what he's got. Liam Lawson is still young. You get a lot of info from him just driving the RB. Yeah. So I'd put Yuki in there, see what he's got for the rest of the season, and let Liam Lawson get a test run in the RB. And if Liam Lawson does well and Yuki doesn't, then you elevate him to Red Bull next year. That's what I would do. No, this is the only reason. I mean, but Red Bull doesn't need the money, so
I mean, they've got one of the richest men in the world. So,
Checo bringing the sponsors is probably a good reason. Yeah, but they don't care. I think that's the thing. Like, that's why they extended him, and they're probably going to fire him because there's like whatever, just money. And I think the big thing is all these driver salary things don't count on the cost cap. So you can pay the driver whatever you want. You can fire and bring in someone else. It doesn't affect the cost cap.
Yeah, and if you're winning, you're making money. So who cares?
Yeah, and they don't.
And I wonder if this situation is what's stopping a lot of these other teams from announcing second drivers and stuff like that. I wonder if there's teams like, Audi still doesn't have a second driver yet. I wonder if they're looking at if Sergio Perez gets canned in the summer break.
Hold on a second. Is Carlos Sainz still an option there?
Yeah, of course. He hasn't signed anywhere.
No, at Red Bull also.
Yeah, he's a free agent.
Conceivably, yes.
That'd probably be if you take a step back and you look at the landscape and you look at everybody that is available, you'd probably say that that's the number one guy available. If you really wanted to get the best guy, he's probably the best one, right?
It is, but if you have a team that already has a clear number one, Carlos Sainz isn't going to want to go there. That's the thing about it, is Carlos sees himself as that clear number one. I mean, he was essentially, when he was at McLaren with Lando, I mean, he was, better driver from what everybody saw, during his stint there. Then, he goes to Ferrari, and when he was at Ferrari, you're behind Leclerc. I'm sorry, that's where you're going to be. If he goes to Red Bull, it'd be the same thing. If he goes to Mercedes, it'd be the same thing. These teams all have clear number one drivers at this point. The only team that's doing good that doesn't, seem to have a clear number one driver is McLaren, because Oscar, they're treating Oscar with the same type of.
You're not going to touch that one, though. They've got both of those guys are absolute studs, so you're not going to touch that one, obviously. But it'd be interesting to see what happens down the road. So we'll see. All right, so real quick here, we'll finish this off quick here. But you've got Spa coming up now. The Circuit de Spa, the Spa Francorchamps. Did I say that right? Who cares? 44 laps.
Most part.
Yeah, 44 laps. We got a couple DRS zones here, and like you guys mentioned, this is a little more of a power circuit where some of the teams like Ferrari may be able to put it together here and be really good. It's one of the I guess you can say one of the longer circuits, right? For only 44 laps, it's about 308 kilometers. So, and the lap record is 1 minute and 46 seconds, 1:46.286. So it's one of the longer circuits, and but it's got some straights. It's got some opportunities for some overtakes here. Are you guys excited about Spa coming in? You got C2, C3, and C4 as your as your compounds of choice there. How do you guys feel about Circuit de Spa? Do you think that this is going to be an opportunity for, again, some of the other teams to, number one, for Red Bull to get back on track. Number two, for maybe a team like Ferrari, who's probably, going to do a little bit better in a track like this. Are you kind of looking forward to that?
I mean, Spa is one of my favorite tracks. I say this all the time, I know, but it's one of those tracks that you can look at the history of Formula One, see how it's changed, and see how it's changed with Formula One. The Eau Rouge and Raidillon, combination right there through 2, 3, and 4 is one of the most beautiful sights you'll see in all of racing. They do all types of racing here, from GT cars to Formula cars, and all the way through like the fastest cars in the world go around this track, and it's always been a benchmark. So yeah, I think that you're going to see the herd or kind of thin out throughout the track. You'll be able to see the bigger differences between the cars, that are good at this type of track, more than you would at like how it was at the last track we were just at, because there is going to be that bigger difference. I talked about it before. It was a couple of years back that McLaren was here, and they were so down on power that they just couldn't keep up. That run from turn 4 to turn 5 is one of the longer straights in Formula One. Not quite as long as Azerbaijan, but still very long. Going even so from turn 1 to turn 5, that whole place pretty much is going to be that whole run is pretty much flat out for these cars. These cars stay on the gas all the way from the hairpin at turn 1 all the way up to turn 5 where they hit the brakes. So it really shows the level that these cars are at with the speed that they're at, and overall, I think that you will see the more powerful cars and the cars that can hit those higher top speeds do a little bit better here, like they usually do. But it's a fun track to watch, and it's always a great show.
Well, that first, right off the line, that first turn, the first corner one, right there, that's going to be mass chaos. I think it's going to be
Oh
chaotic.
yeah,
So it is going to be fun to watch that, but that's usually where some of these cars get out. I mean, you got the DRS right after that also, so you got a lot of things going on right there um, during most of the race. So that's going to be fun to watch for sure. Bish, you like Spa as well, don't you?
Yeah, no, it's a good track. A lot of overtaking opportunities, and then there's always weather issues. So it's supposed to rain Friday, Saturday, and 25% chance on
Wow.
Sunday. So we'll
yeah.
so this is basically a two-stopper as optimal strategy if it's dry, but we'll see. We'll see. A lot of opportunity for McLaren to screw up their pit strategy. So
Oh boy.
we'll see how that plays out. It's not going to be a washout like a few years ago, but they might have to get. We'll see if how they get the strategy right over the weekend, because they're gonna mostly be wet running on Friday, and allegedly during the race it's supposed to be dry, so they got to navigate.
That's the thing, right? Yeah, so they're not going to be able to get a full feel for the C2, for the compound tire, for the tire compounds, for the ones that they have picked. Because if you're on inters most of the time, then I think you're going to see the development of the race kind of shape out a little different, as you mentioned. So it's going to be fun to watch there. Let's see here. Well, timing of the sessions. Let's look at that real quick. The race is obviously Sunday at 9 a.m., but you've got FP1 starting on Friday. Is that Friday or Thursday? Thursday? Yeah, Friday. I'm sorry. Friday the 26th, starting at 7:30 in the morning. You got a FP2 at 11, and then FP3 at 6:30 in the morning on Saturday, followed by qualifying at 10 a.m. Then you've got the race at 9 on Sunday. So, yeah, as you mentioned, the weather might be a bit of an issue. What are your, you guys have some drivers that you want to watch, there's some teams that you want to watch for this one here at Spa. Vish, what do you got?
Yeah, Checo, can he get out of Q1? I mean, it's been at least 4 out of the last 6 races he hasn't. Like it's that bad. So can he actually he's under, and you could tell when he crashed, he was like, this is done. Like it was not even, they asked me if he's okay. He's like, yeah, I'm fine. It was like he knew that pressure is getting to him. He knows he's under the gun. Let's see if he can put any kind of I mean, again, this is a track that on paper should favor Red Bull because they do well in high speed circuits,
power circuits.
Yeah, he's gotta put it together there. That's who I'm watching.
I'll tell you on that one. What do you got, Evan?
I'd like to see some of these midfield teams see what they do here. We've been so used to seeing the Mercedes, the McLarens, the Red Bulls all up there and them fighting. We kind of have started to see where those cars are shaping out, with McLaren being the marginally faster car overall. And then Red Bull right there up there with them, and Mercedes creeping up. But I want to see the teams like Haas has actually quietly had a pretty decent year this year, with everything going on. We'll see if Williams
guys.
It's all good. See if Williams, who traditionally has had a pretty good car when it comes to these power circuits, these high speed circuits, see what they can do there. Like Vish mentioned earlier today, Logan Sargent has out qualified Pecco these past few races. But overall, just I want to see some of these midfield teams and how they actually perform at this kind of track, because it is a track that there's so much data on, because it is a track that these guys know like the back of their hands. It should be one of those things that most of these guys, if they listen to a car going around this track, they should know what it is. I'm sure that we've all seen those videos online where you see these drivers listen to how these cars go through the gears. This is one of the easiest ones for them because everybody knows about Spa. So I really do. I want to see, can Daniel Ricciardo, show form up against Yuki to make his case for that second Red Bull seat? Can Logan Sargent do something against Alex Albon? What's going to happen with, Alpine? Ocon, backed out of got out of the last race. He was one of or was he the only DNF? I think. Yeah, I think he was the only DNF from the last race. Can he bounce back? I want to see what they do throughout this week.
Obviously it's going to sound biased of me that I want to see what Ferrari does in this race, because I think that they're going to have to show.
Well, they got to show something.
Yeah, they've got to show that they're still in it to be competitive. But if I had to choose a driver, I'd probably keep looking at. We talked about him earlier, right? Yuki Tsunoda, I think, is a guy that I'm going to keep my eye on. And if you go even lower, maybe you want to see what Ocon does as well. I mean, those guys. I mean, look, Alpine. We heard the news that Alpine's going to switch to Mercedes, right, in 2026. It's a Mercedes engines that just came out recently, and so this is an opportunity for Ocon going to Haas next year, and him kind of showing what he can do if he can bounce back a little bit. He's a good driver, right? And so I think that in that Alpine car, it's a struggle, but those two guys, I'm really looking at Yuki the most, though, because he's got something that he's really fighting for, which could be the second seat at Red Bull. That's huge. I know he wants it. He wants it badly, right? And so I think that that's going to be interesting to see what he does there. If he pulls it off, if he drives really well, I think he's getting closer and closer, to get that second seed. And if Checo craps the bed again, then it's lights out for him. I think he's done. So let's do predictions. I think moving forward. What do you got? We'll start off with you. Thank you, Jane. Appreciate it. Thank you. Evan, what do you got?
I think Lando's going to come out and dominate this whole weekend.
Ooh, okay.
I think he's going to come out FP1, FP2, Q1, qualifying. I think he's going to come out and with a fire underneath him that we haven't seen in a long time. You heard the attitude on the radio call throughout the race. You heard how frustrated he was getting and how, at the end of it, he was like, don't even say anything to me. I think he's going to come out and he's going to try to establish himself as the dominant, driver on that team. Because, I mean, realistically, right now, the point totals, 78 points between him and Max? It could have been 69 points. Nothing would have been different about the Constructors' Championship, points-wise. They would have got the same amount if Lando would have been up front. So basically they're saying to him, oh, we don't care about the Drivers' Championship. I'm sorry. Jazz, tell me right now, who was the 2018 Constructors' Championship team?
2018?
Mercedes,
right? Mercedes, yeah.
It was Ferrari. Mercedes won the championship.
So Ferrari won the Constructors.
Ferrari won the Constructors.
Gotcha. In 2018. Okay. Lewis won.
And Lewis won the championship. Nobody remembers the Constructors' Championships. Everybody remembers the drivers.
Gotcha.
So they could have been a lot closer with Lando being there, for the Drivers' Championship, but they decided, nope, I'm sorry, we're not going to have that. So,
gotcha. All right, so who are your top three? You already didn't give me your top three. Get it together here.
Yeah. So Lando, I think it's going to be Lando, Max, and then Oscar in third.
Lando, Max,
I'm going to go Lando, Max, and Oscar. Yeah.
Nish, who do you got?
I've got Max, and then God, you know what? Leclerc and Hamilton.
I'm gonna do the same, except I'm gonna switch them. I know it sounds weird, but I'm gonna go Max, Lewis, and Leclerc. That's what I think is gonna happen. Also, I think Max gets back on track. Lewis continues to show me a little something, and then his teammate next year is gonna get back on the podium again. So that's what we got. All right, yeah. We see Carly's got Lando, Max, and Oscar on there, just like Vish as well. So I'm sorry, just like Evan. So, anyways. Thank you guys for coming on the show. We appreciate it. We will talk about Spa next week and get into some more stuff. I'm sure there's more news that will be coming out soon, especially if Checo is bad, then they might forcefully remove him as well. All right, Helmet Marco.
They're not known for patience.
Yeah, they're not. I think Helmet's going to have enough of that and get him out of there. But anyways, we'll see what happens. Thank you guys. Make sure you keep it locked on Twitter at F1_5 reasons. Got some info there. Follow Evan at Furious_F1_. And make sure you catch the latest hitting the Apex next Monday night. Next Tuesday night at 9 p.m. And we've got baseball for you tomorrow and buckets for you tomorrow as well.
We got all the Kane stuff tomorrow. So
keep it locked. We'll see you guys later. Good night.